Food and Drug Administration has agreed to additional new trials for ecstasy, specifically MDMA, the active component in ecstasy, as relief for PTSD patients. Now, this is really great news because there have been studies in the past, and there's a growing body of evidence indicating that MDMA could have positive effects in helping those who are suffering from PTSD, and a condition that in a lot of cases can't be helped with other means of psychotherapy. Now, CJ Hardin is a former Afghanistan soldier. He actually did 3 tours in Iraq and Afghanistan, and he suffered from crippling PTSD. It was so bad that he actually wanted to be a hermit. Like, he left society, like wanted to go live in the forest where he basically was for a very long time. And then finally he was so desperate that he tried MDMA and it worked. He said, "It allowed me to see my trauma without fear or hesitation and finally process things and move forward." Now, the Food and Drug Administration did give permission for large-scale Phase 3 clinical trials of the drug, a final step before the possible approval of ecstasy as a prescription drug. I hate calling it ecstasy because once you do, it just immediately makes you think of like a party drug that's been cut with speed and rat poison.
Do you get glow sticks when you're prescribed it? Oh, see, that's what people think. That's the stupid stereotype.
Well, look, it's not really a stereotype because that is what appeals to you when you're on MDMA. Oh, when you're on the purest kind. Like, it's the best thing in the world. But anyway, so look, the researchers here...
It's like touching God himself.
Not like I know anything about that. But the good thing about this is the researchers are very much aware that this is a drug that would potentially lead to a lot of abuse. And so if this becomes legalized as a medicinal avenue in which someone can get treated for a mental illness like PTSD, it would only be administered like at a clinic with a mental health professional giving the individual the drug and monitoring them as they're going through the high. Now, let me give you some more information. Dr. Charles Marmar, who's a great guy, says if they can keep getting good results, it will be of great use. PTSD can be very hard to treat. Our best therapies right now don't help 30 to 40% of people, so we need more options. There are so many soldiers right now that are suffering from PTSD, so many vets that are suffering from PTSD, and they feel like they have no choice at this point. And so to know that there is another possibility in treating them makes me feel really happy.
Totally, yeah. And look, I mean, if you go back enough decades, that's what MDMA was used for, was for research into possible medicinal applications and things like that, and it apparently had them. It's so easy to brand a drug as either purely entertainment or having some good side effect. I mean, we know that there's crossover potential. Lots of people get addicted to painkillers, not because it dulls pain, but because it dulls everything, and that's awesome. Like, we understand that certain drugs cross over, but others have this weird stigma that you have to fight for literally decades to kill. Like, weed, for instance, is such a benign substance in comparison to a lot of the drugs that you can get prescribed to you right now that are heavily at risk of becoming addictive, or have deadly side effects if you cross them with another drug or something like that. But for some reason, weed has this lingering stereotype. Now, I'm of the belief, at least right now, that I think effectively all drugs should be legal. If you want to destroy your body or your brain, not only should you be able to do that, but you can do that. I can go down to the store and I can buy a container of bleach and I can drink it until my eyes bleed if I want to. Who are you to stop me from taking ecstasy? I never understood that. But if you're interested in possibly trying things like this sort of drug does concern me more than something like weed. Like something that actually changes, and I understand all drugs act on your brain, but something whose principal use is to affect hormones in your brain and cause like them to be shot out at high velocities into your brain. That does scare me a little bit, but there are people who desperately need it.
Yeah, look, there are people who desperately need it, and understand that this isn't something that's meant to be used as a long-term treatment. Now, there, of course, is research behind MDMA being destructive to the brain if it's used for a long period of time, if it's used regularly for a long period of time. But that's not what would happen here. So the New York Times wrote a great piece on this. I highly recommend that you guys read it because it also profiles some specific cases. And there was another man who was a firefighter, and he had dealt with so many gory situations that he suffered from PTSD. And so his wife was like, he would have been dead He would have taken his own life. He was planning on jumping in front of a bus and taking his own life. But he was willing to try MDMA. He did. And he's like, it helped me kind of cope with my inner demons from a different perspective. And I don't really want to take the drug ever again. I feel great. I feel happy. And that's it. And I think that's super important. There needs to be regulation on this drug, just like there needs to be regulation with any drug that's legalized. But I think that this is a good first step toward a different avenue to treat people with this mental illness.
Can you listen to the same old corporate media?
Can't do it.
Now, I hear you, brother. Become part of the independent media. Join us. tytnetwork.com/join.